Hey, it's Carla on the Carla Rand Show. And today we're focusing a little bit more on dads. And so I got my special guest, Cam Hall, who was talking about dads making a difference. He has a podcast called Dads Making a Difference. And so we focused a little bit more on that, but there's a lot in here for everybody. So enjoy the show. All right, I'm on here with Cam Hall, and it's the Carla Rand Show. Cam, welcome to my show. Thanks for being my guest today.
Hey, Carla, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. And so when you reached out last week, I was like, yeah, I'd love to connect with Carla again. She's doing amazing things. So thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. And I know you're doing amazing things too. And it was really fun. We talked about, I don't know, we talked about it. Was it like 3 years? Was it 5 years ago? Something like that, where I had a Facebook Live with you and you were talking specifically about nutrition, because at that time you were a fitness and nutrition coach. And that was
Yeah.
kind of like a big deal for you. But all of this time, you and I are both teachers. And you've been teaching this whole time as well. So you're full-time teaching, plus you had this fitness and nutrition business. Now you have kind of launched into, like, you've got this podcast going on, and you're kind
Mhm.
of working more with dads and talking about that. So Cam, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you grew up, why, how you got into fitness and nutrition, and then what caused you to kind of pivot into more like helping dads at this level?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. You said, was it 3 years ago? Was it 5 years ago? And I'm gonna be honest, even if it was three, it felt like five.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good to, like I said, it's good to be here again. For those who are on that Facebook Live, who might be listening to this again. I'm glad they're listening and they might know a little bit about this story. But for those who are new, I'll share a little bit about that. Growing up in a small town and being in a small high school, I had an opportunity to be involved in a lot of sport growing up. Grew up in a family of five. I have two younger brothers who are awesome. And, my parents were great growing up, good home. I've done some other podcasts where I get into a little bit about our family life and how it wasn't always rosy and how some things that we faced as a family and some adversity and some trauma um, actually shaped me who I am today and helped me become a better dad. I won't get into that here, but I can tell you that that experience as the youth growing up in a small town, having an opportunity to play sport, gave me a passion for fitness. And at first, it was a passion for just being athletic and having fun with my buddies. And then into university, I got to play basketball, and it was great. I was surrounded by peers. We had no choice. End of August, there we are with the team. You're with them, 10, 11 months of the year, and you're thrust into this social group, which is pretty cool. And I enjoyed that. And the problem came when I finished playing ball. And I was this guy in my mid 20s who was always known as, Cam the fit guy. And that's how I identified. And without basketball and sport, and I had moved to a new city, I was really struggling to come to grips with who am I now that I'm not an athlete. And I started diving into I'll be the fit guy. Unfortunately, I did it in a way that wasn't super healthy for my body. I didn't put like substances or anything into my body. At that time, maybe I was taking like a pre workout or creatine or whatever it was. But unhealthy, I mean, I had a really unhealthy relationship with food. And so this went ongoing for about 4 to 5 years until my wonderful wife, Kim, snapped me out of it and encouraged me to get healthy. And by getting healthy, like I looked healthy. I'm 6'5". So I was like 6'5", 8% body fat, 225, like the build that a lot of guys would be like, that's my ideal build. Like that's where I'd want to be. But I wasn't happy and I wasn't healthy and I was hungry and hangry and short tempered. And all of this came because of my poor relationship with food. So, with Kim's encouragement and with some introductions to some pretty important people in uh, fitness and nutrition, I started to get a passion for actually helping other men transition their lives from being that shallow, I just want to look fit, to that actual meaningful, I want to be fit, I want to be healthy, I want to be able to do things with my family. This all coincided with me becoming a dad. 2012, we welcomed our beautiful daughter. 2014, my beautiful son. And through that, I struggled with how do I balance being a husband and a father and my fitness and a professional. And I was doing my master's degree at that time. All of this came together in one big story that inspired me to start the Fight the Dad Bod brand. Just to encourage dads to live fit, healthy, fulfilled. It morphed into something bigger. It became a successful nutrition and fitness coaching business. And, everything has its season and it's still going. But I have since like taken a step back from that to dive into some new things. It's pretty cool.
That's good. And, there's a few things that you mentioned. So the first thing that you talked about is, you were kind of the jock. And really, I remember you like that, Cam. Like we were only together for 1 year in school because I went to boarding school for grade 12, but we graduated together and it was a pretty small school for the most part. So we got to know each other decently. Do you know what I mean? And I just remember
class of 52.
There you
52 kids in our grad class.
Yes. Yeah. So there we were, and so like you were the jock. Absolutely. You were the jock. I was kind of a jock too, but I wasn't into sports as much. I did more of the music, whatever. How did you go from Fight the Dad Bod, focusing more on fitness and nutrition to changing it up more to working with dads, or like talk about what you're doing? I know you just started a podcast. Tell me more about what's all going on there with the dads.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the best part about Fight the Dad Bod is that I'm a people person and it's a one-to-one coaching program. And so I got to meet hundreds of men, and people say, oh, you're exaggerating. No, I'm not. Like Fight the Dad Bod started in 2015 and it's now 2022. Like you meet a lot of people in 7 years when you're online and you're on Instagram and Facebook and reaching out to guys, and people hired me to help them get somewhere in their health. Some guys wanted to lose weight. Most guys wanted more energy so they could be more present with their family in the evening when they got home from work. Some guys wanted to manage stress better. Others wanted to sleep better. Like there was different reasons that brought men in. And as I got to know these men, I started to realize that while I believe, and I'm sure you do too, health is your foundation. If you don't have your health, you have nothing, right? So if you aren't healthy, you're not going to be able to have an impact in the other areas of your life, right? And so that was the foundation. But I started to get into these one-to-one conversations with men, really getting to know them well and build relationships with them, and I would say friendships with them. And things started to come, bubble to the surface. Things about relationships with their kids, relationships with their spouse, why they just felt like they were being distant from their wife and they couldn't understand why. Stress about money, stress about providing, stressing about being the dad that they believe they want to be. They have this aspiration in their head of where they want to be with their kids when their kids are 12 and 18 and 20 and 30. And so all these things bubble to the surface. I started to realize men need so much more than just nutrition and fitness advice, which nutrition and fitness advice is part of it and it's important, but it's not the whole picture. And so I felt that I was called to make a difference. I thought my purpose was to be speaking to men more than just fitness nutrition. And so that's where the idea for Fight the Dad Bod transitions to dads making a difference, to start connecting with men in a way that would really truly inspire them to make a difference in their family, in their business, and in the community around them. That's dads making a difference, because I was coaching guys who were the family guy, the dad, like stay-at-home dads or working 40, 60 hours a week. I was also coaching guys who own their own businesses, who are entrepreneurs, and guys who are like, I just want to serve, but I don't feel that I have the time to serve my community. I don't feel that I have time to coach my son's baseball team. And I was like, okay, guys need help here because they're working in isolation. And that is the greatest fear for a lot of these men that I was coaching to Fight the Dad Bod, is they were just so happy to belong to something bigger than themselves, to belong to a community of men. And so this is where Dads Making a Difference came from. I just did launch the Dads Making a Difference podcast, and it's been a lot of fun. And the Dads Making a Difference Mastermind, which guys are coming into, which is really cool. But that's where that shift happened. And, seasons change, right? I started Fight the Dad Bod when I was 33 and I'm now 41. And so, Fight the Dad Bod started just as an Instagram account before it was ever a business. But yeah, I think we go through different seasons of change, and we can speak to those who are kind of in the same season, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's cool how you pivoted, and it does seem natural, right? It does seem like a natural progression. So let's talk about dads, Cam. I'll tell you what I think about dads, and then I want to hear your perspective because you're a dad and you've talked to dads.
Yeah.
I think right now in our culture, I think dads, well, men in general, I think sometimes feel a little bit stuck because there's this idea that you're supposed to be, this provider and everything, but you're not supposed to be too dominant. Like there's that tension, right? Like, do you hold the door
Yeah.
open for the girl or do you not hold the door open for the girl? Do you play
Right.
with your kids, and wrestle with them and do all those kind of tough things, take them fishing, teach them how to, change the oil on the car? Or do you, play dolls with them? Like, like there's this kind of tension. And also there's this expectation that guys are supposed to be able to do all of these things. They're supposed to provide, they're
Mhm.
supposed to help around the house, and they're supposed to, just do everything. And so, I mean, moms have that pressure too, but we're here to talk about
Yeah.
dads today. So tell
Yeah.
me, like, what do you see, I guess, as the big issues that dads struggle with right now?
Such a good question. I recently did a podcast interview, and the first question was, "What is manhood?"
Ah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And so I answered that question. I'll answer the same a little bit here with a twist based on what you asked. Right now, I feel that in society, in our relationships, in our social media content that we're absorbing and making ourselves subjected to a little bit,
Hmm.
um, there's this idea of toxic masculinity.
Yep.
There's this idea of masculinity.
Hmm.
And so toxic masculinity is that I view this as that, over bravado, grow the beard. This is nothing against guys with beards, but like grow the beard, throw the axes, do what
Yep.
like that really rough, gruff. This is it. Don't hug your boys, don't kiss your sons, like that type of stuff.
Testosterone, like overload,
Boom,
kind
boom,
of.
boom. Right. And I would say that that is toxic masculinity. And I think that's where a lot of what we see in society right now, um, where guys feel like they're getting quote unquote a bad rap. Like they just can't win because they say something, or they hold the door, and somebody's like, uh, this woman can hold the door for herself. Like
Yeah.
she can, but she doesn't need to.
Yeah. Like she's
Right.
offended. Like she may be like, you don't need to hold the door for me. I can get my own door, and like
Yeah.
get all upset at you or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? My biggest encouragement to anyone who's listening to this is not to get caught up in that and to start focusing on masculinity and what it really is. And when I boil down what masculinity is, there's a word at the bottom of it that is really hard for guys to digest, and that's vulnerability.
Mm.
You need to be vulnerable. You need to be willing to have open conversations. You need to be willing to admit when you're wrong. You need to be vulnerable in showing emotion. It is healthy for men to show emotion. It's healthy for men to have moments when they're angry, as long as they know it's also healthy for them, their kids, to see them cry. Right. And so emotion is emotion. We're human beings. We all have it. A lot of guys will bottle that in, and then it will then express itself in that toxic masculinity piece. And so, if we really want to step into being men who are caring, loving, making a difference, and really feel that we make an impact in the lives of others, you need to be vulnerable. You need to be open. You need to have conversations. You need to invite others in, and you have to keep others out. And you have to be very mindful of what you're letting influence your trains of thought, right? I don't know if I answered your question, but I feel that there are really two camps right now on what is manhood and what is masculinity. It's unfortunate that it's becoming so divisive between the two, between this and that. But you want to think about what is healthy and what's not healthy, what's comfortable and what's discomfort. And right now, I think there's a lot of discomfort in the fact that if I hold the door for this woman at the grocery store, is it being interpreted as the helper, as the superior? Or am I just a human being caring for other people who's holding the door for another human being?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on the dynamic of, your family and all of that. But I do think that, things have shifted so much in our culture that we almost have
Mhm.
to like revisit what that all looks like. Like, what does real manhood and masculinity look like today? I don't think it's,
Mhm.
I don't think real manhood is, sitting around with a box of tissue and crying constantly, or, you know what I mean?
No.
Like overly that way. But I also think that, like you said, there's that balance of being vulnerable, and that's okay. Right.
Mhm.
And I think that also helps relationships too. Like I think marriages and stuff, when you can both be vulnerable and you can both share with each other, I think that that opens up so many doors for more intimacy and just like a deeper level, I guess, of your relationship, right? And even
Mhm.
like man to man, right? Like with your friends, with your buddies, instead of just getting together and going on about, all the cool things you did that day, or like how much money you're making in your job or something like that. Like maybe talk about things that you're truly struggling with, right? And it sounds like that's what you're creating space for these men to do.
But the goal is to create a space where men can have unfiltered conversation. I realized that I was surrounding myself with men and people in my life where we would get together and we would crush a couple beers and we'd sit around a fire and we'd tell stories, the good old days, but nothing we were doing was pushing us forward as men. And what I realized is you and I have both been parts of masterminds and coaching groups, and we believe in personal development. And so I found myself in a mastermind starting about 2 years ago where I'm the only Canadian. I'm one of the younger guys. And but one of the things is unfiltered conversations in this piece about accountability. Um, we talk about five things in that group, and we talk about like our personal goals, financial goals, relational goals, spiritual goals, and intellectual goals. And so we talk about these five things. And what you get to is to have unfiltered conversations where everything is pushing you forward. Even if it's a hard conversation for you to have and somebody's telling you you're wrong or like bringing to attention that a choice that you made was probably not the right one, it is still pushing you forward. And you're not in these, you know, I call them stereotypical conversations where the boys get together for a football game. That's the only time they see themselves all together every week. And it's the same story every week in circles. Like men need to branch out of isolation, connect with others who are going to push them forward, trusted group of advisors, and have unfiltered conversations.
Yeah. That's so good. And unfiltered conversations. I like that. And I think what you have to be careful with unfiltered conversations is who you're having those unfiltered conversations with, right? So I
Mhm.
think, like you said, creating a safe space, like
Trust, right?
trust, confidentiality, all of those things. And I think
Mhm.
sometimes you can't get that from family. You can't get that from closer friends, maybe that are local. Sometimes you need to get that maybe from a different scenario.
Right.
I don't know. That's what I find. Sometimes I can be the most vulnerable sometimes with people that are not as close to me, because the people that are as like super close to me, they're very subjective, and sometimes you don't get that confidentiality like you kind of
Mhm.
need.
And do you know how you build trust? You build trust by being a giver, not a taker. So when you're in a conversation, and this is part of our mastermind and part of the Dads Making a Difference mastermind, is that you come as a giver. So everyone in there is there with the goal of I am going to make an impact in the life of somebody else. So when they share their topic for the week and they're struggling with something, I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, this isn't about me. I really want this, and this answered. You're sitting there thinking about, oh man, okay, I've been there or I haven't been there, but you have empathy and you're like, okay, have you tried this? Have you thought about this? And you start to dissect that. When you start to do that, it's amazing how much that fills you up and you start to process on your own. So then you get to the point where you are the person who's asking for help and everybody's like, oh, yeah, like here, 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 here. And you can have unfiltered conversations because everybody knows that you're a giver. And people who come to conversations, I just want to go on this
Yeah,
little tangent for a
good.
minute. People who come to conversations as takers, who want to get, you know what? They'll find happiness for a short period of time. They'll get information. They'll get these pointers. They'll get this guide. They'll get this framework. They'll get. And then they'll try to implement it. And it may work or it may not. And then they still feel empty. And they're like, what is going on? It's because I truly believe that as humans, we are called to make an impact on the lives of those around us. And so if you're just getting all the time, you just get tired and you get bored and things seem stale. And this is why people leave coaching programs. This is why people leave masterminds because they came in with the wrong motivation. They came in with the give it to me, give it to me. I paid for this, or I invested in this, or I showed up for this. I'm just here so you can speak to me. And there's an interesting switch that happens in your brain, your mentality, and your approach when you come saying, all right, what am I going to bring today?
Mm.
Like I showed up here for the opportunity to give. opportunity to serve, opportunity to speak into somebody's life, opportunity to hold someone accountable in a way that's uncomfortable because we're having unfiltered conversation, right?
Oh, that's so good. Like so many things you're saying there, Cam. Like it's just, yeah, it's like what do you call it? Getting the wheels turning in my mind and realizing that, I think that is what I tend to do naturally. I tend to be a giver. And I think that's where, like, when I'm in a situation, I'm always like, hey, how can I make this better? How can I give? Even if I go to a course, like, say I'm taking like just a course in the day, I'm like, okay, how can I make this course better? How can I make people feel more
Yeah.
comfortable? Like the other day I was in this room, this lunchroom, and the guys were coming in and I wanted to say, okay, everybody, like, let's stand up. I want to hear about yourself. Tell me about your family. Like, this is me. This is who I am. But I'm like, okay, in that context, like, that I wasn't the boss there, and I needed to just take a step back, which I did. But it's that idea of like giving and serving and impacting, and I think that's so important. And I think that, like you said, that's something that not everybody maybe gets or realizes. They just think that they're going to benefit if they get, rather than they're going to benefit if they give.
Yeah.
I think as teachers too, Cam, like you and I are teachers, and we know that when we're teaching students or whoever we're teaching, we always get more out of it when we're preparing a lesson, right? Than what the students or the clients or whatever get, right?
Yeah. I'll share a little. Can I share a story?
Yeah.
This is from yesterday. So
Okay.
yesterday, so like you said, I'm in education. I've been in education now. So my 15th year. I don't want to get ahead of myself. 15th year, but I'm a vice principal now, and I've been an administrator for a while, and I miss the classroom. But I love the opportunities I have to build connections with kids in a way that's outside the classroom. A young lady came to my office yesterday. Yesterday was our last day of classes at the high school. We're in exam break now. A young lady who had faced some adversity in her life over the last couple of years, who I just got a soft spot for, her and her brother. Hey, and so,
Yeah.
and she's a racialized kid in our school who's been up against it for a long time. And she came in with a simple little thank you card, and she's like, you can open it now and read it if you'd like. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not really a read a card in front of the other person type guy. I get a little like embarrassed by that, but I'll read it. And so I open it up, and this 16-year-old girl had written this beautiful note that had pointed out some things from the year where I immediately started getting emotional. And I just looked at her, I'm like, before you make me cry, kid, like, thank you. Like, this speaks volumes to me. And I just appreciate you. And, I care about you and your brother, and I hope you have a great summer. We'll see you in the fall. And she walked away, and I was like, oh my word, why am I so emotional? And then I looked back at that letter today, and I was like, why does this touch us in a way like I was touched yesterday? And it was because she mentioned 3 or 4 things that she was so thankful for, and how there was one day I came back. I had been away on a medical leave. I had some medical stuff going on earlier this year, and I was like away and from the school, and I felt like I was missing out. But when I came back, she's a kid I sought out. I was like, I was thinking about you. I missed you, and I hope you and your brother are doing okay. And she said, I literally went to the bathroom after that, Cam, and I cried because it felt so good to be somewhere where people cared about us, and she comes from a family where that doesn't happen. But Carly, you spoke to it, we're educators and we love to serve and give, but the power is in that you don't expect where it's going to hit someone, and where someone's really going to find an impact on what you're saying. Like, everything she outlined, this young lady outlined in this note, the 4 or 5 things, I almost forgot about. Like, I didn't even realize I had done those things until she reminded me of them. And it just shows you that the smallest thing that you can give, like, the smallest thing is just your attention and the ability to listen, and the ability to, like, her and I have been in some conversations where I've had to hold her accountable to some of her life choices. And so, but that's because we built trust in relationships first. And so relationships are key. And I think that's why you and I probably do the work that we do, is because we thrive on that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I know. The relationships, it's like all about the relationships. Like, even for me, cutting my grass, it used to take me like 5 hours. And I was like, hey, this is ridiculous. Like this is not making an impact. So I'm going to cut down the lawn size. We're going to get it done in like 2 hours max, including the whippersnipping and everything. So I just cut down the lawn. I can't remember how I did it, but I was just like, this is nonsense. I'm not doing this. I want to spend my time with people, not sitting here on the lawn tractor. So, as much as sometimes that's good too, be a good steward of your things, whatever, we can argue. But yeah, it's like, it's about about the relationships, it's about the people, it's about making an impact. And I think, yeah, that's why we do what we do, Cam. And I think you and I are actually like very similar in a lot of ways, which is really interesting. But yeah, so tell me more about like dads. Okay. So dads, so you're basically, you talked a little bit about their struggles. Okay. You talked about being vulnerable. You talked about those kind of things. What do you think dads, like most dads that come to you, what do they need to do to connect with their kids better? Is that an issue for them, or what's, like what are the obstacles, and what's going to help them? Because there's going to be dads listening to this too.
Yeah. Okay. So when a dad, I'm just speaking from my experience of the men who I've spoken with. So there's somebody listening to this right now who this will speak to, and there's someone who will be like, no, you're way off. But hey, listen anyway.
Yeah.
Dads will say, I want to connect with my kids. And they misinterpret time for connection. I want more time with my kids is a lot of times what they'll say. I'm like, well, what does that look like? Most men will spend, there's a study that just came out, like an average of 85 minutes with their kids per day. And well, 85 minutes may sound like a lot, but people are spending 3 to 4 hours on their phone. So, or watching TV, or a guy will sit down for 3 hours and watch a hockey game, but 85 minutes with his kids seems like enough. Oh, I just need more time with my kids. Well, you need to be intentional with your time. And it doesn't matter if you have 60 minutes, 80 minutes, 30 minutes, or 100 and whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. The time that you have to make count. And so we go from having conversations about getting more time with your kids to being more present, being more active, being more intentional with your time, right? And so guys need to be more intentional. So some of the things that they can do is, eliminate distractions, like put the device away. When I go for a walk with my son in the morning, I leave my phone at home. When we go to a sporting event, I coach my son's baseball game, the phone stays in the vehicle. Like there's no distractions when I'm with my kids, or I try to eliminate as much as I can, right? Like being intentional, because right now our most valuable resource, people will say, is time. Oh, time is your most valuable asset. And it's not true. Your attention is your most valuable asset. And so where are you placing your attention right now? And that's what guys are struggling with. Do I put my attention on my work? Do I put my attention on providing for my family? Do I put attention on like pursuing this side gig that I'm passionate about? Do I put my attention and my time into my wife, or to my kids, or to God in my relationship with him? Like, where do I put my time? And I'm like, where you put your attention matters, not where you spend your time. And so that's kind of where guys are at right now when they come to me, is they're confused on where to place their attention.
And what would you say about marriages? Okay. So, I imagine there's guys that come to you, they're probably, my wife is this way, or I can't connect with her, whatever. What do guys need to know about marriage, about wives, about that kind of thing?
Oh, they're all ball and chain. Wah, 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 have to go home. Wah, wah, wah. Yeah. It's perspective. I just had an opportunity to have a great conversation with a gentleman named Evan Money. And he has a course called Marriage for Greatness. And he had some really great points. It's like, it's not about you, man. Like, it's about you as a couple. You made a commitment to come together as one. And you think about all the turmoil and the self-talk you have in your own head, where sometimes you disagree with yourself and you're trying to process through. Now, if you've come together as one, you have double the self-talk that's coming out loud between each other. So you kind of navigate that. So guys who are maybe struggling with a marriage now, I'm going to say, there are people out there legitimately struggling in their relationships. Okay. I'm not trying to make light of that. There is professional help that I would encourage people to seek. I see a counselor, and it was such a stigma when I first went to a counselor to be like, just talk about them. Well, what am I going to do? Well, talk about my feelings. Oh yeah, what a wuss. Like that type of stuff. But once I started going and just having someone I could talk to, and then for Kim, who's my wife, and I, to have somebody that later we'll talk to somebody different. Won't go to the same guy, but that we can talk to, and have somebody who's an outside voice with no emotion invested in it, just to say, hey, tell me more about that. Oh, how did you feel about that? Oh, did you realize you said that in that way? Like, just those things helps navigate the conversation. It's such a healthy thing, right? But there are situations where a relationship is toxic. I've worked with men, and my wife's worked with women, and I'm sure you have too, who've been in situations of abuse and trauma, and and you're like, come on, get out, right? And we try to support them through that. But for men who are out there complaining because their wife told them they have to cut the grass again, or it's the weekend and all they want to do is go play golf and they have the honeydew list, like, dude, get over yourself, realize what you've committed to right now. And here's another thing too, is start reading, start diving into even little blogs or books about
or podcasts
and podcasts. Listen to podcasts. Take in information that's going to push you forward, not push you away. So if you're watching TikTok, scrolling through, and every video that's TikTok's feeding you on your Discover feed is about guys who are, complaining about their wives and their kids, where's your brain going to go? Put that down, connect into information that's going to encourage you to be a better father and a better husband. And that's where your brain's going to go. And you're going to start, finding people who can help you through that process for sure.
Yeah, the brain is it's so powerful. And what we feed it, you're so right, Cam. The things that we focus on, again, where our attention goes, that's what happens in our brain. So yeah. So what would be your kind of message to the world, Cam? What do you think? I mean, we've talked about a lot of things, but what do people need to know? Whether it's dads or just families or just individuals, what do we need to know, Cam?
Commit to a vision. Find out what that vision is for you and your family, for you as an individual. Have a vision for your kids, your wife, and then commit to actually taking the steps forward to reach it. That means making tough decisions. That means surrounding yourself with accountability or a group of people who are going to push you forward, like we were talking about before. But once you have that vision, don't just sit there and dream about it. People will say, I have this vision. I want to accomplish this. I want to. And reframe it as I am going to, or I'm doing this. And so my message for guys who are out there right now is, first of all, you're going to make it. You're doing well. There's people out there who've been through what you're going through, whether it's positive or it's negative. And you're not alone. You're not in isolation. So take your vision, create a plan, step out of isolation, and start making a difference.
That's so good. Isolation. That's so important. So Cam, if guys want to get a hold of you, maybe a lot of what you've said has resonated with them to some degree, where would they go?
All right. So if you want to get a hold of me, best way is probably through Facebook or social media. I'm all over the place, right? If you're interested in Cam, I want to hear more about the nutrition stuff, Fight the Dad Bod on Instagram, Fight the Dad Bod on everything, just fightthedadbod.com, whatever. But if you want to connect with me, you can email me, cam@dmdpodcast.com. Check out the DMD podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to that. And I just reach out, send me a message. Dad's Making a Difference on Instagram as well is a great place to connect with our content and send me a message.
Yeah, or message me and I can hook you up with Cam too, because I can connect you. So thank you so much, Cam, for being my guest. I really appreciate this. And I mean, there's so much more we could dive into, but I think this was a good start anyway. So thanks for speaking to all the dads, especially. Appreciate it, Cam.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Carla.
You're welcome. Hey, it's Carla. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast today. I have 3 things I want to tell you about myself. But first, please go check out my company, Power Fitness Online. PowerFitnessOnline.com or Power Fitness Online, Facebook or Instagram. What I do there is I help you. I train you so you can get fit, strong, healthy, have energy, feel good, and be at your best. Because in this life, we want to be at our best. I do, you do, we all do. So here's 3 facts about myself. Number 1, I've been a fitness trainer for 20 years. Yes, 20 years. Number 2, I'm 5'4" 3/4, not 5'4" 1/2, none of that. 5'4" 3/4. Number 3, I have 6 kids. Yes, they're all my own. None of them were twins. They're all my own. I had them one at a time. And I love my kids so much. So remember, go to powerfitnessonline.com if you want to get fit and stay fit.